Hi, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to take a look at the Strata 1.3 update and show you what's new. So let's dive right in. So here I have Strata open, and I have open the Mini Rogue Space Divider only demo scene, which is in the examples, in the Mini Rogue demo example scenes folder in the package. The package is out now. It's on the asset store and on itch.io. It's available as of last week. And so what we have here is a board generation profile that just has our new generator, which is called the Space Divider. This is an approach that's based on an algorithm called binary space partitioning. So what this means is that we take a space, in this case a rectangle, and we divide it in half, and then we divide those halves again, and then we divide them again, right? So we get something like this, what we can see here. If we go for, let's say, a smaller number of iterations or divisions, we can see, right, we get these kind of shapes where we have these much larger spaces, and then we're also cutting out doors in between the divided spaces, right? So I tend to go for this. If you want to kind of really divide the space, you go for this high value, and then the limiting factor becomes this minimum division size. If we lower it, we're going to see this very kind of maze-like, it's kind of cool, space. Now, the way that this works, every time it divides, it places a door. I'm not going to try to trace the path on this one. Let's go back to like a larger size, and then we can trace the path through. So every time it places a division, it places a door in that division. So there should be a pretty reliable and pretty high degree of internal connectivity between all of these spaces. Now, what we can see is there are certain cases, corner cases, that come up where here, for example, it tried to divide across and would have blocked the door. So I added in some checking, some code that would sort of try to solve for that. You see, we don't get the same kind of clean door, but we still do preserve connectivity in those cases where that would have happened, right? Where a dividing wall, because the divisions happen at the time that the space is divided, right? So it divides, picks a door while it's drawing in the wall, and then when it's dividing again, it doesn't actually keep track of where the doors are, right? So it has a chance to block them. So in this case, I added a little kind of almost post-process step where it just checks ahead of itself and says, oh, am I about to block a door? Let's not do that, right? As it gets to the end of dividing a space. So we have the minimum division size, right, which allows us to choose what is the smallest possible room that we can create. The chance to split vertically, basically, it will try first when it divides something to say, is this 1.5 times greater along the vertical or the horizontal axis? And if it is, like if it was going to divide this, it would automatically split it this way, right? As opposed to trying to split it this way, which I think leads to a more natural type of, more human built, actually, as opposed to natural type of structure. Which is what I like about this approach, right? It creates things that look like buildings or dungeons or something built by sentient creatures, right? As opposed to like caves or something made by natural processes. In the case where it's close, right, this chance serves as a tiebreaker. So this is not like a really, probably not the most useful or determinate parameter, but I put it in there anyway. This is just the character that we're going to write for the wall, right? In this case, M corresponds to these bricks in the board library. In the Mini Rogue example, the iterations we discussed, right? It's how many times are we going to split, right? You can get some interesting stuff by playing with that number. The wall gap size, these are the doors, right? If we make this 4, we get these larger gaps. Also, these kind of more ruined looking structures, which is kind of cool. Starts to look a little less coherent and more like a ruin, but it's also interesting. We could, of course, go and change the wall thickness. This is if we want to just get something that's really like one tile thick, and that's probably useful if you want to go for like these very, you know, densely divided. Let's go for like max density, right? We can create some really complex little honeycomb city type or sort of favela like sort of structures. It's pretty cool. Then we have the initial rect. So this is just right now, we're basically, if we make this, let's make this smaller. Let's go 50, 60. Then, and I actually have in here importantly, there's a fill that just flood fills and then carves out, right? So here now, and then we also have the option to randomize the initial rect origin, right? So we can kind of place this as a building within the larger structure, right? And then if we don't have the flood fill, we can just place a kind of a building in empty space, right? And this is where the draw border comes in. You can also place something without a border, right? If you want to do this kind of ruin again. So I've tried to really leave a lot of flexibility here. What clear internal space does is it just means, do we, in that case where we had the fill, do we write the black space over it, right? Do we carve out overfilled space, or do we just overlay this over what's there, right? So it's kind of like, are we clearing out and then drawing in, or are we just overwriting walls over empty space, right? So you could get something like here, if we don't, let's say we put 3 of these in, you could have them overlap like this, right? Which gets pretty cool. Importantly, you're not going to get guaranteed connectivity in this approach, right? Because you might overwrite a wall over something that, although here the connectivity looks pretty good, but it's random, right? So you don't definitely have connected rooms here, but it looks pretty cool. Let's draw the border in. That'll break the connectivity more, yeah. But if you combine this with like a tunneler approach, or just here, if you have the openings in the border, let's just put like 10 openings in the border, lots of gaps in the walls, you probably, by luck, get a case where these overlap, you know, where there's a hole. But again, not reliable, right? If your game is like absolutely dependent on having a critical path that the player can get through, don't do this. But for some games where you have bombs or a pickaxe and you can dig through walls, then maybe this is fun to experiment with. Then on top of this, there's just a couple small quality of life type improvements, right? We added these, I've added these icons just to make it easier to see what's going on. We have this GN icon for generators, RL for room lists, BL for board libraries, PR for profiles, and so on, right? Just trying to make it a little more. Let me close my dev folder here so this is the actual stuff that ships. So as you can see, right, we have icons for our different generators, and just to make it look a little nicer. The other small fix that we did is by we, I mean the royal we, right, because it's just me working on it. I don't know why I always say that. We have the cube world example here. I have taken the experimental tag off of the 3D generation, mainly because I've added support now for regeneration, right? So it will properly handle all the game objects that are generated and delete them and destroy them rather, and works in edit mode, works in play mode, and so that was something I hadn't done before because I wasn't sure if people were going to use the 3D mode. Turns out people are using it, which I'm super happy to see. So I added a little bit of better support for it. Also for Alias City 1, right? I tested it and used it a bit more so that, just to verify that it worked and worked quite well in that project. So I was happy with it. So I'm considering it a supported feature now. So that is all for Strata 1.3. I think there's some small bug fixes and stuff, but this is the main stuff. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the video content that I'm putting out on the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe, turn on notifications so that you actually get a notification when I release new videos. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.